glasses, he gets attacked suddenly, and Windows sees it, right?
Yeah.
And is it Fuchs?
I think it's Fuchs, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
They basically Windows catches him being kind of absorbed, right? And they
basically surround him.
Yeah.
In the snow.
He runs out and he lets everybody. Windows runs out of the room and lets everybody know something's wrong with him. And by that time they go back in and he's jumped out the window.
Yeah.
And they go back outside into the snow and they surround him. And
he hasn't fully formed yet. Mm-hmm. His hands basically look kind of like
lobster.
Yeah, like lobsters. Claws. Yeah, like lobster claws. And he's kind of, I think by that point the alien has kind of already known that it's game over, and it starts screeching. Mm-hmm. And then they just they torture him basically. They pour gasoline on him and then they light him on fire
with a flare.
Yeah.
And then once that happens, the team kind of turns on McCready.
McCready, yeah.
Yeah, I think McCready and Knowles, they go out and to do something, and he basically cuts the line, and he's like, "Oh, I found McCready's
like his jacket or something."
Which was in the... It was somewhere.
It was in the furnace in his room or his cabin or whatever that he has separate from everybody else.
And he's like, "Oh, this is sketchy."
Like, yeah, because they said why, basically McCready had this theory saying that he thinks when this alien transforms into whoever it's transforming into, the clothes get ripped off and stuff like that. And he had seen McCready's clothes ripped up and attempted to be burned in the furnace to try to get rid of the evidence, I guess.
Earlier, they talk amongst themselves about how they think that it goes through your clothes first, and it rips them off.
Yeah.
And so that's why they have this theory that McCready is already turned, but in fact he's still normal.
Yeah.
And anyway, they turn on him and they start boarding up everything from the inside, and McCready gets in one of the storage units in the back, and they have this kind of standoff, this quick standoff.
Yeah.
Where he's like, "Well, if you torch me, I'm gonna blow everyone up with this
because he has like a big old stick of dynamite." And then that's when they say, like, "What about your clothes?" And he says, "Anyone could have done that, Like, who's to say the thing didn't just rip up my clothes and throw it into the furnace to make it look like it was me?" Mm-hmm. And then everyone's like, "Oh, bullshit, you're lying."
And when so a few people try to grab him, and before that, the character Norris, he's having breathing problems and kind of acting a little peculiar. He tries to grab McCready. Mm-hmm. And then McCready kind of tosses him off, and then Norris is on the ground and he stops breathing.
Yeah.
So they all kind of stop what they're doing, and they're like, they want to assist Norris before it's too late. So they take him to the kind of the autopsy room, and they're trying to revive him with the
paddles, the electric paddles.
And the doctor, I think his name is Dr. Chopper, is doing all he can. He's on top, trying to bring him back. Yeah. And then I think on the third try,
his hands go straight through his torso, and basically
sternum.
Yeah, his sternum, and then it was like a giant mouth, pretty much, and it fucking chomps on his hands, and then he that's the scene we were talking about earlier, but basically bites his hands off. And then he bleeds out and dies. And then they realize that Norris was the alien the whole time. Yeah. Which was
conveniently enough, he was the one that everybody thought could not be the alien.
Yeah.
That was the one. That was the safe guy.
Yeah.
So Windows. They say, Windows. I think he has the flamethrower at the time. when all the shit is going down, and they're like, go torch him, and he hesitates, and Norris, or what was Norris, has like a big mouth for a head now.
Yeah.
And kind of chomps on Windows and kills him in a very brutal way.
Yeah.
And then they end up having, so they torch they torch him. Mm-hmm. They torch the remains of Windows and Norris. Mm-hmm. And then everybody goes back to kind of attacking McCready, thinking that he's still one of them.
Yeah.
Or how do they know that he's not one of them? And where do they go from there?
That's where that's where he gets that idea to
the blood test.
Another way to test everyone's blood, which is basically gathering up everyone's blood separately into different vials, and he's going to burn each vial one at a time. And his theory basically is this creature will basically feel the blood burning that's separate from, basically when you take a human's blood and you put it in a vial and you burn it, we don't feel the blood burning. But in his theory is that this creature will feel the pain.
It's like it's still connected.
Yeah.
To the
kind of like one entity.
Exactly.
Even if it separates into two, if you hurt one, the other one feels it still.
So what they do is they kind of heat up with the flamethrower an end of a wire.
Yeah.
And they have these kind of slides of each person's blood that they've had, cut. They've made them cut themselves and have a fresh vial of blood, pretty much. And he goes down the line of every character, and everybody's fine until he gets to Palmer.
Yeah.
But at that time, he thinks that it's Gary. And Gary kind of complains, and he's like, "Oh, this is bullshit. And, well, this doesn't mean anything. How do you even know that's going to work?"
And I like his McCready's reply. It's like, "Oh, don't worry, I'll do you last."
Because he thinks he's so sure that it's him.
Yeah.
And that's what he says right before he tests Palmer's blood. And Palmer's an alien as well.
Yeah.
And you see like the blood instantly turn into like this huge kind of hand tentacle thing, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
It's pretty awesome. And the blood falls down, and you see it kind of move separately.
Yeah.
The blood kind of disperses on its own. And what else happens?
They kill Palmer. And what else happens after that? Someone. Oh, then that's when they say they got to go test Blair's blood because he's the only one who's left. And they so it's McCready and who else went with them? Knowles,
Childs, and Gary. So Mac, Childs, Knowles, and Gary are the survivors.
Yes.
Besides Blair.
Yeah.
As of towards this is like the last act of the film, I think.
And they basically tell Childs to stay and watch the door. And if we don't come back, so basically, he says if Blair comes back without us, kill him, because that means he's obviously killed us and he's the last one. So they go and they see that the cabin door is wide open, and then so they're like, oh, what's going on? What the hell happened? We locked it from the outside. They go into the cabin and they notice that some floorboards are loose. They pry those open. Pry those up, and they notice that there's a tunnel going down pretty deep into the snow, and they follow it down, and basically Blair has been making some type of craft, if you will,
a spaceship
basically, and out of the parts from the helicopter and whatever else he could scavenge basically, and so then they kind of obviously know that it's him. And they decide to. Knowles actually sees Childs run out of the camp basically, and he says, well, what's going on? I think I just saw Childs run out, and then so I think McCready's like, well, we just gotta they're gonna blow up his spaceship, and I think they come to the realization that because the power gets cut, right?
Yeah.
The power goes out, and he says, well, this thing wants to get frozen again, and it wants to wait for
the next
rescue
rescue
mission to come and find him, and then he'll thaw out and start all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And then so his idea is, let's blow up the whole place. Let's set everything on fire. We're gonna die anyways because there's obviously no power. We can't stay warm anymore inside the research facilities. And he says, let's just blow the place up. Basically,
they do like basically a last stand.
Yeah.
Like we might be going, but we're gonna take this thing with us.
Yeah.
And what happens to Knowles?
So Childs, Knowles, and Gary torch everything inside the facility, and then they go, we got to go down to the basement to basically blow this place up from the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And as they're doing that, Gary runs into Blair, and he basically pushes his fingers through his face and kills him right off the bat. And then Knowles kind of sees something in the dark, and then he goes in, to see what's going on as they're setting dynamite in the basement. And you don't really see what happens to him. He just kind of just disappears, and then McCready's kind of noticed that everyone's gone,
mm-hmm.
and that's when the thing attacks him.
Well, in a crazy way, I think, because he's trying to set up this big kind of concentrated dynamite explosion to blow up the cavern that they're in,
mm-hmm.
right? And obviously Blair or the thing is onto him, and it does this kind of they set up this kind of Godzilla-esque shot, where he's underneath the floor. The thing is underneath the floorboards, and it follows him, and it starts.
And you see the floorboards flying up as it's moving, which is a pretty cool shot.
It is a cool shot, and it stops right before his detonator. His detonator, and it kind of reaches out with his tentacle and pulls the detonator underneath.
Mm-hmm.
But he still has the kind of loose
the sticks.
Yeah, the dynamite sticks. And that's when you see the kind of Blair emerged in this huge entity.
Yeah, it's kind of it was like basically a mixture of everything that's consumed already.
Mm-hmm. And you see the dog come out from the from the bottom, and McCready's lights the dynamite, and he says, "Yeah, fuck you too."
Yeah.
And he chucks the dynamite at it and kind of blows up the last remains, or so we think.
Yeah.
Of the creature, and you kind of see him limping along outside, and Childs kind of appears out of the dark.
Yeah.
He comes around, and he.
Because McCready's like, where the hell have you been?
Yeah.
Like, where'd you go run off to?
Uh-huh.
And he's like, I thought I saw Blair running outside, so I went after him. And then he's like, oh, okay. And then he's like, what about you? What happened to everybody else?
Did you kill it?
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, I killed it. And then, who's it? Childs, he has a flare gun, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not a flare gun, a flamethrower still, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of sit down facing each other, and McCready has his bottle of scotch or whatever he has with him, and that's what it is. And he takes a swig of it, and he's like, oh, so what's gonna happen now? And he's like, the fire's pretty good right now. It's nice and warm. He's like, but it's gonna go out
it's not gonna last.
Yeah. And they're kind of just like, oh yeah,
it's like, and neither will we.
Yeah, we'll just see what's gonna happen. And then McCready takes a swig of the liquor.
Then I think Childs does.
Oh yeah, he passes it to him, takes a swig of it, and then he passes it back, and they're kind of just smiling at each other.
It's like a stare down, because either one of them, it could be the thing.
Yeah.
Even though I'm pretty sure it's not McCready.
Yeah, because we kind of the movie really follows him a lot, because he's more of a main character. But you kind of wonder, like, is Child's